Well, hi, folks, and welcome. Good evening. And we're going to wait just a couple moments to get things rolling here. I think we have one very important participant. Oh, yay. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Okay, let's get this party rolling. Okay. So we know that folks are out there. You can see and hear us, and we're glad for that. And we are excited to welcome you to our presentation about financial aid this evening. And what we are going to be doing by way of format. First of all, I'm going to introduce you to who is in front of you right now. So you have had a chance to meet me in the admissions process already, but you haven't likely met my colleague, Casey Otley, our Director of Finance and Operations. How are you, Casey?
I am doing wonderful this evening, Cheryl, and how are you?
I'm doing well. Here we are both at Eastside Prep. No snow, ice, or rain in sight.
It's sunny in yours.
It's sunny here. But we're glad that you all are here, folks, wherever you're joining us from and whatever weather you're in. We know that you have already gotten through the admissions application process, and we're grateful that we're now going to be able to step you through a little bit more about the financial aid process wherever you are in that journey, because we know that some of you have already applied, some of you are in the process of applying. And so wherever that is, we really just want to give you a whole variety of pieces of information tonight that you're going to find relevant, applicable, informative. And we also want to invite folks to use closed captions if you need to. You'll see that on your Zoom toolbar, and there are some different language options there. So if you would like to have our presentation captioned and or translated in those captions, you can take advantage of that opportunity as well. So first, let's tell you a little bit about why we're here in the first place. And it is because our goal is to make EPS affordable for every family that is going to be enrolled at the school. And so what that means for us is we're going to look at a family's financial picture so that we can make a determination about what we can provide to that family in order for their student or students to attend EPS in a supported way. And what that means is that we have a lot of aid that we're distributing right now. So currently that's over 1.5 million in aid, and that's going out the door to about 1 in 10 EPS students. 57 students are receiving need-based support from EPS. We also increase that amount every year. So Casey, how is that working in terms of that budget increase, and what does that look like here at EPS?
Well, we've continued to increase it for, I don't know, the last 7 or 8 years since you and I have been here, Cheryl.
Yep.
We've had the opportunity as the school has grown to continue to increase our budget to be able to support more students and families.
Yeah. So what that means is that we are giving out grants to students and families. These are money that do not need to be paid back to the school. It's not like a college loan that you're going to be paying back to some sort of lender or the federal government. This is an aid award that we give just to ensure that students are going to receive what they need. And that average award is $31,000 per student. And that is just in the context of our tuition amount, $42,500 this year. That will hopefully give you a sense of what that level of grant amount is on average for folks. So with that, what does it cover? So when we say grant or financial aid or meeting financial need, what is that covering? First of all, that's covering the entire program. For us at Eastside Prep, the program is not just the classes. That's things that are happening outside of the classroom. That is the ability for us to have an understanding of how the the academic program, our activities, what we would call our co-curriculars, and our extracurriculars are coming together. That also includes our sports program. So you are not incurring, with the exception of crew, which is a particularly expensive sport because we row out of South Lake Union. That is the one and only thing that we charge an additional fee for beyond tuition. But otherwise, sports are included, all those sports uniforms, all that good stuff. It also means the tools that students are using to access the program. So it's going to be our laptop computer, and that's something that families are purchasing once every 4 years. And so if a student is with us for both middle and upper school, they're going to have 2 laptops for that period of time. Why does that happen? Because we can only warranty a laptop for a 4-year period. Technology changes rapidly. So we want to ensure that we're going to have both the software and the hardware that your student needs in order to be successful in our program and organizing themselves. So those laptop purchases happen during that time, and that is covered by aid. That also covers books and other course materials. So anything that a student's going to need in the classroom in order to be successful, that's going to be covered by the aid as well. Getting students to the school and from the school. So we have our own private bus. That's different than some other schools in the area that utilize a common metro bus that's cooperative with maybe some other schools. For us, it's an EPS bus. There are some students that take metro, and we've got the South Kirkland Park and Ride directly across the street from campus. But the students that are taking bus transportation that we provide, we will provide a subsidy for that transportation as well. And then education beyond the classroom. Every year we take some really amazing trips as grade levels in the middle school, or with a variety of different options in the upper school. Those EBC trips, they are a highlight of the EPS experience, and we want to make sure that students receiving financial aid can fully access those programs as well. So we have some need-based support for those programs. And again, that's typically just about a week of experience that students are participating in early April every year. And then finally, lunch on school days. We want to make sure you're nourished while you're taking advantage of all this great program. And so we provide the equivalent amount of what it costs to get our lunch on campus on a typical weekday. And so the lunch here is fantastic, delicious and nutritious. Today we had chicken tacos, very, very hearty and tasty. And so that is something that was covered for students. They can also use those funds, though, if they prefer to bring lunch from home. They could use those funds for breakfast on campus or for snacks. It is limited, so students are getting breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks at EPS. You will incur some additional costs as a family, but we want to make sure that the lunch costs are definitely taken care of. And, finally, what I want to add is just an overview of who should be applying for financial aid. So really, any family that is in our midst, whether that's a new family or a family that is already enrolled at EPS that has any concerns about their ability to pay for the EPS experience. So we want to make sure that folks know that we're really committed to providing the resources at any point of enrollment that families are going to qualify for, that demonstrate that they have need. We want to provide those resources. I think a really important thing to make clear is that as serving as our Director of Enrollment Management, I wear a hat in the admissions world, a hat in the financial aid world, but that our admissions committee does not have access to information about who is applying for aid, who is receiving aid. That is completely separate from our admissions review process. So we're admitting students to EPS because of a student and what they're going to bring to this community, what they're going to get out of the EPS experience, not because of a family's ability to pay tuition to Eastside Prep. So we're really committed to providing that aid, and it is separate from the admissions process itself. So with that, I am, just going to give a little bit of a sense of some of the tools that we already have available. So you may have already seen on our website that we have this aid calculator where you can input what your household's gross income is and what the size of your household is, and get a sense of roughly what are the grants that are being received by currently enrolled EPS families, that we can have a rough estimate, a range of what we could expect in terms of receiving need-based support. So with those calculations there, again, we do that based on our actual financial aid data, but there's no names and information of aid recipients there. It's just going to give an approximation of what that support could look like for a family. So Casey's now going to step us through some examples of financial aid. And again, we're using real data, but any of the identifying characteristics of it have been taken away. We use real data though, because we want to give you a sense of practically how does this work? So rather than just giving some vague examples, we want this to be really rooted in reality and experience. So Casey, can you step us through Sophie and Sophie's aid at Eastside Prep?
My pleasure. Yeah, so Sophie is ninth grader here at the school. You can see has a younger sibling at another independent school. So where that becomes important is when Clarity, the system that we use, looks at it. They looks at how many kids are at tuition paying schools. So if a family has, let's say, $50,000 that they could put towards school, and there's 2 kids, then it would say that each kid could get $25,000. So that is why we're using this example here. In this case here, Sophie's family, they own a small business with $100,000 of income. They own their home with a value of $850,000. So those all are, kind of a few of the important items that come into the calculation here. In this case here, Sophie's getting an 85% grant for tuition, and as Cheryl talked about, that 85% will also apply to the other items that she spoke to. In this case, then that tuition ends up being $5,850.
Awesome. So just giving you that picture of kind of who is the student, what is that kind of basic financial picture for the family in terms of income and living environment, and what does that translate to as far as that grant is concerned. So next, let's talk about Taryn. So Taryn, another sample EPS student. What should we know about this profile, Casey?
Yeah, so as we mentioned here, Taryn is not a real person, but this is a real person. And we have 10th grade here just to give you an idea of that. The grade really doesn't make a difference in how this calculation happens. So in this case, Taryn lives with father, income of $125,000, and receives some child support also. They rent their house. In this case, the grant for Taryn and her dad is 75%, resulting in the tuition there of $9,750. And just to keep saying it again, that 75% will apply to bus, books, EBC, etc.
So if I'm getting 75% toward the tuition costs that are the general program costs, I'm also receiving 75% of the total costs of the laptop, of lunches at EPS every day of the school year. All of that is going to be covered.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about Jake.
Okay, so Jake is a senior and has a sibling in college. So going back to, that's 2 students in tuition paying schools. So a college kid counts, a younger sibling in kindergarten could count if they are in a tuition paying school. Both parents work, are employed here, income $225,000. They own a home with the value of $550,000. They also have a rental property. So there's another source of income that will come into play here. In this case, Jake's family received a grant of 60%, leaving tuition costs for the family of $15,600.
Awesome. And finally, let's talk about Emily.
Emily is new to EPS this year. Got one parent that works outside the house, $150,000 of income. They own their home in liquid assets. So that would be, let's say, an investment account. So that will come into account. Income is the largest driver of the calculation here. Assets and home equity come in a little bit, not a lot. Investments will come in more because depending on how much those liquid assets are, they can come into play because they can be helpful in paying for tuition. So you can see in this case, given this scenario, there was a grant of 30% for tuition, which ended up with the tuition cost of $27,300. So a little bit higher tuition than what we see in some of our other cases, bringing in a couple things here from the investments that they do have.
Okay. All right, so you've had a chance to see these kind of 4 pictures and just really want to underscore these aspects of how we're determining the aid. So we have a formula that we have created as a school for the aid determination that's based on a variety of factors. Here are going to be the biggest things. So Casey, will you step us through what those different factors are?
Yeah, so income is by far and away the largest one, and that's can be from your employer or from your own business or businesses. We mentioned a couple times already the number of students in tuition paying schools, and then in general the size of the family, and then the net worth will take into account both home equity as well as the investments that we just talked about in the last example. And then the other thing is there's an opportunity within the application to talk about what we call unusual expenses here, things that don't happen to everybody. The one that we see most often is unreimbursed medical expenses.
Okay, great. So just a quick recap on what you've already done, which is get your applications in by the deadline for admissions. There is more time. So if you are somebody who's still in process with the Clarity financial aid application, you have through early February to be able to complete that. Ideally, we're going to have that from you by Groundhog Day, February 2nd. And right now, actually tomorrow, we'll begin our annual re-enrollment period for the school. So between mid-January and early February, February 9th, and that's when our currently enrolled EPS families are having a chance to do the re-enrollment process. That means they're committing for the upcoming year. And that means that for those families, they applied back in December. They are receiving need-based grants in line with their students' tuition agreement. So what goes out is a statement that says, hey, here's your contract for the upcoming year. Go ahead and look through and sign this. Here's what your balance owing to EPS is going to be. And you can pay it in 1, 3, or 9 payments over the course of the year. So it gives you a sense of, all right, here's what our total investment in this education is going to be from a financial standpoint. Here's how we're going to pay it. You are really just making that fulsome commitment to the school with a signature as well as an enrollment deposit. It's 10% of your tuition owing. So for a family this past year who was not receiving any need-based support, they would have paid $4,250 on our, $4,425 on our $44,250 tuition. Casey, I was just making sure you were awake over there, checking my math. For the upcoming year, it'll be based on the upcoming year's tuition. But for a family that is receiving a 50% grant, that 10% is going to be cut in half. So it's really, it's going to be based on what 10% is for your remaining tuition balance as a family. It's not just a straight across 10% for everyone who's re-enrolling. So again, need blindness, we're not looking at a family's ability to pay when the student is being considered an admission committee. And our notification, so we have time between admission committee and when decisions go out. During that time, we look at the financial aid grants. And at that point that you receive your student's admission information, provided you have given us the financial aid application by the deadline of February 2nd, we're going to have a grant in there for you. So that grant is going to be applied to that total tuition amount, and you'll see that right in line in that tuition agreement. So we just make sure that that is included at the same moment that you're receiving the enrollment information, because we don't want students to feel like, oh, I'm really excited that I got into EPS, but can my family afford it? You're going to have that information as parents and guardians available for you right at that moment. So we're going to talk a little bit about applying via Clarity. We hope that for those of you who have gotten started with this process, this has been pretty easy, whether you're completing it on a mobile device or on a larger device, that it's very easy for you to access. If you haven't gotten on there yet, we've got the QR code here. You can snap that with your mobile device. When I did a sample application in Clarity, I did it on mobile, and it took me about 15 minutes to get all the way to the point of submit. So that was based on me, sort of doing some guesstimates. You might have some other information that you need to look up and then impute. Casey will go through that in just a moment. But you are going to get into this portal, and then you're going to see this fun little owl who's keeping track of applications. Casey, when families are on this page, how many applications will they see? What's that going to look like there?
So they're going to see, well, they're going to see one application. When they get further in here, there's the opportunity to choose how many students they are, excuse me, that they are applying for.
Yeah.
And I think we have that in a little bit here. The nice thing about right up here, on the left there, well, it's left for me, I guess, application, it tells me that I've got an application in process. On the right, it'll let me know if there's any documents that are needed.
Yeah.
Until I get to the point where I hit, submit on the application, it's at that point that it'll tell me what documents I have to do. And actually, it's really easy because you just have to agree to let the Clarity system reach out to the IRS and get your 2022 tax return.
So we switched to Clarity this year because we think it provides more clarity for families around what their total contribution owing to the school will be. And we think it's an easier form to use. There are some schools that use different financial aid forms. So depending upon where your student is applying, they might have other applications owing for other schools. They might have another application that is also part of the Clarity system. So it's going to be one application per household, like Casey mentioned, multiple students in the household, they're all included in that same application, but just know that different schools use different forms and have different policies. This is the first year that many of the schools in the Seattle area have given consideration to Clarity as a platform. We saw a number of our peer schools move in that direction. So hopefully you just had one form to fill out, but you might have had a couple forms to fill out this year. And that might be changing in the following year as well, if you have future applications for other students in your family. So Casey, you're mentioning the navigation in the system. Step us through kind of some of the things that they're going to see here.
Yeah, so really nice. And when you're in the system, you're always going to have a bar over on the left that'll let you know where in the application you are. And you'll see the kind of the 5 different areas that it's going to start with there. And you're going to go through the first 2. And then after that, it's going to decide what other questions that you need to answer based on, once again, size of family, do you own businesses, and things like that. And then it will guide you through the remaining questions or that need to be answered.
Casey, you gave a little bit of a foreshadow of this earlier, but this tax verification piece, this is one of the reasons why we selected Clarity. How does this work?
This is the thing that makes it the easiest for families as they are applying here. Read this little thing and hit sign down at the bottom there, and then Clarity reaches out and grabs the tax return, typically the 1040 from, in our case, the 2022, because for most of us, we don't have our 2023 tax return yet. Cheryl, you on top of yours yet?
Nope.
Me neither. So Clarity will go out and grab the 2022, and that's what will be the large part of the decision, the calculations. So it is a lot easier than having to dig it up on your own and upload it. So this works wonderfully.
Yeah, so we made that decision for ease of your experience as a user of the application form. And again, if you have worries from the EPS standpoint of, I haven't done my taxes yet this year, I'm not going to be able to get those to you. You don't have to have done your 2023 taxes in order to apply for financial aid at EPS in this current year. What we need is for you to have the prior year completed, and that is what the Clarity application is going to pull from the IRS. So for us and our rules, what we've said is we don't expect that families are going to have their current year done at the point of application. It's the prior year to that. So 2023 is the prior year, 2022 is the prior year. You can follow that logic if you're looking at this in the future. But we hope that helps clarify that we don't need you to rush on those 2023 taxes. Now, that said, Casey, we got a question, which is, what if our income for 2023 and 2024 are going to be very different than 2022? How should families be addressing that? And I'm actually going to switch to this slide about taxable income and what that entails.
So there's an opportunity in here. So once again, Clarity will grab your 2022 tax return, and then you have an opportunity as a family, parent, guardian, to say, hey, here's what I think it's going to be for 2023. And if it's going to be drastically different for 2024, there's an opportunity to do that also. So every family is going in and doing an estimated for 2023. And then if it's going to be significantly different for 2024, there's an opportunity once again to input that. Hey, look,
Yeah.
there's my name on there.
The important thing to know is that we want to have an accurate sense of what's happening in your family's financial picture. So we know that sometimes there's loss of income from year to year. Sometimes there's a bump in income from year to year. There's any number of reasons why those changes happen. So we'll go through at the very end and talk a little bit about how you give us more information about all of those different circumstances. But you can see the basic financial section here where you're going to input that. Let's talk about kind of expenses that families are having and how they're going to input those, Casey.
Yeah, so here's the main sections that are listed, and it's kind of nice here. You just slide the bar kind of left and right there to determine. So utilities, once again, you see this is looking for monthly expenses. So this is an area where it will make sense to take a look at your, I always like to say checkbook still, Cheryl.
Your virtual checkbook, go to your online banking. Look up some numbers. If you use a budget tool, go to that.
Yeah. So gives you an opportunity to, dial those in a little bit here, so health insurance is going to be the amount that's out of pocket. If your employer pays for some are part of your insurance, that would not be included there. And then once again, food, clothing, transportation, and so forth. And there's a few other categories here that you can just play around there, and we'll dial in kind of how much you spend on a monthly basis as a family, as a household.
Yep. So after we've gotten through that income picture, we want to know, with that net pay that you have, what have you done with it? Where has that money gone? We want to have a clear picture of that because it lets us know what's left over to potentially pay for education. Or for many folks, I'm sure it's this feeling of what is it left over? And we can, understand those feelings. Let's talk a little bit about, Casey, we have a lot of families who rent in the area. We also have some families who own a property. What do they need to know about real estate?
How much they're paying in either rent or a mortgage. So, there's if you own a home, they're going to ask for, what's the value of it. If you don't know that, you can pop out to Zillow or other things like that to grab the current value, your mortgage. So deduct that from the value. It's going to give you a net worth. And once again, that's going to, in some cases, it'll play a small little piece in the calculation here. And then talks about property taxes. Unfortunately for us in the great state of Washington, our property taxes are a little higher, but we avoid an income tax. So that's good. I should probably stop talking about taxes now.
I was like sunny siding that one, Casey. I appreciate it. Let's talk also about, some of these aspects of our financial picture that go beyond just the monthly and what we're paying for housing. What are the other things that we need to know about other accounts that we might have or large debts that we might have? Yep.
So, looking on the asset side, your bank account, your checking account, investment accounts, we talked about that in one of our examples previously. Those two will go into play a little bit depending on how large they are. They can come into the calculation. The retirement, we asked for that here. It doesn't actually, we have elected for that not to be part of the calculation, but it's still good for us to know where that is. And then other assets, if there's things that, I can't remember. Let me see here. Just glancing. Yeah. If there's other assets that you own, there'll be an opportunity to put them there. Liabilities, credit cards. And really that's credit cards that you're not paying off on a monthly basis per se. So if I spend $500 for my groceries every month and I pay that off every month, that's not what this would be. This would be more like something that I'm not able to pay off on a monthly basis. Student loans there. And we talked about medical there. That comes into play also sometimes.
Yep. So that revolving debt that folks might have if they've been carrying over a balance on a credit card from month to month, or those things that are, still unpaid to a hospital or a medical provider, things like that. That's all going to be considered in that liabilities category. So we mentioned earlier, how do you tell us the things that maybe we need to understand that there wasn't a chance to elsewhere in the application, like a significant shift in income for particular reasons, or other things. Where are they going to do that, Casey?
Right here in this other part, when we get down to the other considerations, this is where your opportunity to just tell us a story, of why financial aid you believe is necessary. It's some of it maybe talking about from the question we had earlier, income is going to be different from 2023 to 2024. You have the opportunity to input the number. Here's where you could say, hey, I changed jobs, or I took 2 months off for a surgery, or stuff like that too, to identify some things. I support my parents pay for their medical bills, other things like that. Just an opportunity here to round out the story.
Yep. Yeah, great. So then you're going to send us this form. So in terms of submitting the application, there is a $60 application fee, and that application fee will apply to Clarity. That's something that is going to give you the ability to pay the fee within Clarity, or is that an Eastside Prep fee, Casey?
That is a Clarity fee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's something that if you're submitting the Clarity app to multiple schools, that's going to get you all the way there. We are, as a school who is, asking for you to use this application, happy to provide access for folks who want to receive a fee waiver for Clarity. And so we know that there are other schools who could do that as well if they're requesting the form. Ask any of us. We're happy to be able to provide you those fee waivers if that's something that you're going to need. Much like in the Ravenna application, if you don't see that really visibly clear indication of, things being submitted, you're going to see this little yellow caution sign in the application when things haven't yet gotten through to us and need to be completed. But an important thing to know is once you've submitted the application, you can't go back in and do changes to it, because at that point, we start analyzing the information. Our financial aid committee meets and goes over the grant amount. So we can't have folks going in and changing different things there, because that's going to change our calculations as well. So just an important thing to know, wait to submit until you feel like everything is correct to the best of your ability. Go ahead and pay that app fee or ask us for a fee waiver if you need one. And you can contact me to do that. And then go ahead and send it all along. Anything else about that, Casey?
You got it.
Okay, so if you need help along the way, there might be things about the Clarity platform specifically that you want to ask about. They have a great help center that has lots of resources. You can chat them for direct support. They really want to be a resource. But again, it's maybe some of those things, maybe it's getting in touch with us. So again, ask Clarity if you have questions about the technology, the platform that's being used. Ask us if you need other things. So anything about the process, admissions and financial aid, or receiving a fee waiver, I'm going to be able to help you out with that. If you want to talk numbers, get in touch with Casey. So if you're like, hey, here is the, picture for us in this year and then in another year, and what you need to know is we had to sell this or do that, Casey's your guy to talk about those specifics. So with that, I'm going to leave this slide up so that you can write down our contact information if you need it. But for those who are live on the call that we are recording right now, feel free to chat in with questions of things that we haven't covered that you're wondering about. If you have any specifics that you want to ask about and you want to submit that question anonymously, you are more than welcome to do that. We can answer questions live. We can also sidebar if there's going to be highly specific things in there. Casey, anything else you want to mention just about the overall process, or anything else that you think families need to know while maybe some questions are coming in?
Yeah, I should say one thing I can think of, or at least one to start with. If there's two families supporting a student, there will be separate applications. So they would come, each of the households would come in and fill out an application. Clarity in the background will bring those together with the student's name. To be able to analyze it. So that is one question we get sometimes.
I have my household and I know what I can contribute to my child's education. My former spouse has their household and they know what they can contribute. Those two applications are maintained separately, so we don't have access to each other's information, but they will contribute as families have let us know, who's paying what percentage of tuition. That will give us an indication of who receives what amount of aid toward their child's education. So appreciate you highlighting that. Somebody wants to know, Casey, what if we realize we made a mistake with a number after we submitted the application? We submitted, but we looked back at it, and I know how that goes. It's as soon as you send the email or click the thing that you're like, I messed it up. So what should they do?
Send me a message.
Yep.
Yeah, reach
Yep.
out to me and we can talk about and figure out the best way to get that updated.
Because although you can't go in and make those adjustments anymore to the application yourself, we can go in as financial aid professionals and make some adjustments manually on our end. Ideally, we're not doing that super often, but if there's something that comes up, again, we're all human, we're all in this together as humans. So just let us know if that pops up. We're not gonna chastise you. We're all, just trying our best. So yeah, that's a great question. And we'll give some time for more questions to roll in. If you feel like you've gotten what you needed out of the presentation and got the basics of understanding how aid works at EPS, how the Clarity Financial Aid application works, and how we use that, you are more than welcome to head off. And we appreciate the half hour that you've spent with us. But if you want to stay on for more questions, we will be here to support with that. We've got our respective school water bottles. Casey with the Huskies. Got my EPS mug.
Yeah, what did I do with my EPS mug? I think I loaned it to one of my teammates.
I have other EPS mugs. I've got all the EPS drinkware, Casey.
Yes, you do.
I do. Oh, Casey, you know what we can talk about? Actually, we'll say goodnight to anybody who was watching on the video, but oh, we got a question in before I had a chance to segue to another topic. Saved by the bell. What if the grant we receive is not quite what we were hoping for? So there's a sense of what families believe they have the ability to pay. That might be different than what we will actually calculate in terms of your ability to pay and how that might come out. So ideally, folks would love it if they didn't have any contribution at all, but sometimes there's going to be a contribution or it's going to be larger than you were anticipating. So how do we address that, Casey? What should families do?
They can reach out to either one of us, I would say. Certainly feel free, as I am the one who looks at the numbers. I guess one thing this reminds me is that within this application, you're going to be given the opportunity to let us know how much you think you can pay
Yes.
towards the education. So that gives us some idea of kind of what you were thinking, so that if the numbers end up being really different, often I will have reached out to you already to try to understand if there's something in the application that I'm not that the system is not seeing.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I really admire is that a lot of families are even if the financial aid application says they can't afford to make a contribution, they will often say, we want to pay. This would be a significant amount for us to pay in a given year, and they want to make that contribution that demonstrates their sense of investment in their child's educational process. And so we want to honor that too. There are sometimes families who know, we've got somebody in our family who's going to be helping with maybe paying that deposit in a given year or paying for a trip that our student has. And so those are things that are, going to be part of the reality for families. And we appreciate that. But there might be a difference between what you say you can afford and what the school says in either direction. It just depends on the family. Does everybody who apply for a grant receive one? That's a really good question. Casey, what is the reality of families who aren't receiving grants from EPS? Now, I just want to reiterate that we're committed to providing the need-based support for every family with demonstrated need who enrolls at EPS. So it's not that some schools might be in a position where they're like, hey, the budgetary funds are limited. We can only do so much. So we're putting you on a financial aid wait list or something like that. We don't do that at EPS. If you've been admitted and you have demonstrated need, we are going to help with those costs. But what to do about not getting a grant if that's the case?
Yeah, I mean, there will be, and it's I'm going to say a rare occasion
Mhm.
that there'll be a family that applies that does not meet the financial need categories per the Clarity calculations. So that happens once or twice a year, and sometimes we don't hear anything back. We'll let a family know. They'll say, okay, thanks for considering, appreciate you letting us know. And sometimes we'll have conversations with them just to, once again, to go a little deeper, to understand the story behind the numbers, behind the application, to see if there's something that Clarity just can't calculate because it's not something that's calculatable. And it's just something that we need to work through together.
But again, for families where we are admitting the student and they have demonstrated need, we are committed to providing that grant. So one thing that we don't want families to do is apply and worry that after all of that, we're not going to be able to meet their demonstrated need. If you have need that exceeds the tuition cost, we're going to be able to help in some amount toward that if your student has been admitted to the program and chooses to enroll. What else? Any other questions out there? Really appreciate all of the questions that folks have sent us this evening. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see more of each other, Casey. And we will close things out for tonight, but you saw our contact information and have the ability to get in touch with us. If there's anything else you want to follow up on, please, by all means, do send us a note. If you want to just, request a call and we can set up a time to do that, that's absolutely something that you can contact us to do. Sometimes it's easier to talk through things than it is to write about them. And we understand that, we're interacting with what is probably the most personal aspects of your life, your kids and your money. I don't know how we could ask families to be more vulnerable than talking about both of those things with us, Casey. So thanks to everyone who takes the time to complete the application, both for admission and for financial aid, and engage in this process with us, because we recognize that these are your most precious kind of aspects for the majority of people in the course of their lives that they're going to interact with, talk about. So thanks for your trust in us, and we really want to honor that and respect it and do all of our best to ensure that you have a great process working with EPS. So thanks again, Casey, for all of your insights and expertise this evening, walking us through, especially the Clarity application. Thanks to all of you who participated, and we'll look forward to being a resource and being in touch.